For several weeks, a man named Lucas endured perplexing bites that surfaced each morning, leaving his skin inflamed and unbearably itchy. He assumed it was a straightforward bedbug problem, but when specialists finally revealed the actual cause, the terrifying discovery stunned everyone involved. Lucas had been trapped in a relentless nightmare. Every dawn, he awoke to fresh red welts on his arms, neck, and chest. The incessant itching served as a painful reminder that something was moving across his skin overnight. Desperate for relief, he attempted every remedy, laundering his bedding in scalding water, meticulously vacuuming every nook, and applying store-bought insect sprays. Yet, the bites persisted, reinforcing his belief that bedbugs were to blame. What other pests could it be, he pondered. After yet another restless night, Lucas stood beside his bed, glaring at his mattress as if it were the source of his torment. He cautiously pulled back the sheets, searching for any signs of movement. There was nothing. No small insects darting away, no bloodstains or shed skins. He leaned in closer, scrutinizing the seams, but still found nothing. It was infuriating. He was certain something was feeding on him, yet it remained invisible, and the itching showed no signs of abating. At his workplace, Lucas found himself distracted, frequently rubbing his neck until his colleagues inquired about his well-being. In a bid for answers, he turned to online research, hoping to validate his suspicions. Every result pointed to bedbugs as the culprit. However, the suggested detection methods, examining mattresses, inspecting furniture seams, and setting traps, yielded no evidence. It didn't add up. If bedbugs were present, he should have found some proof by now. One night, in a last-ditch effort to catch the culprits in action, Lucas set up his smartphone to record his bed while he slept. He carefully positioned it to have a clear view of his pillow and its surroundings. With unease but determination, he went to bed. The following morning, he reviewed the footage. The initial hours were uneventful, showing only his restless tossing and turning. Around 3 a.m., he noticed something odd. His blanket moved slightly, as if something had shifted underneath. At first glance, he couldn't discern any specific shape, just a vague movement. Upon pausing and zooming in, he saw nothing. No insects, no bedbugs, only the unsettling certainty that something was indeed present, too small or too swift to detect. That afternoon, Lucas contacted an extermination service, seeking professional help. When Mike, a seasoned exterminator, arrived, he attentively listened as Lucas detailed the issue. Mike nodded thoughtfully, taking notes on his clipboard before donning gloves and embarking on a thorough inspection of the bedroom. He meticulously shone a flashlight into every mattress seam, disassembled the bed frame, examined behind the headboard, along the baseboards, inside the closet, and even scrutinized the rugs. After nearly an hour of searching, Mike shook his head. "I'm not finding any signs of bed bugs," he reported, a confused frown etching his features.
No droppings, no exoskeletons, no eggs.
"Are you certain the bites occur at night?" Lucas rubbed the back of his neck. "Yes, I wake up with new bites almost every morning. They're intensely itchy and resemble bedbug bites. What else could it be?" Mike sighed, scratching his jaw thoughtfully. "Sometimes other insects can be mistaken for bedbugs. Could it be fleas? Do you have any pets?" "No," Lucas responded, frustration evident in his voice. "I live alone. No pets, no recent travel, just these persistent bites." Mike offered a sympathetic glance. "I can set up some professional traps to see if we catch anything. If you're agreeable, I'll leave them overnight and return tomorrow." Lucas agreed, a flicker of hope igniting that perhaps Mike's traps would confirm the presence of bedbugs and provide a solution. That night, he attempted to sleep once more, aware that traps were in place and that someone else was invested in resolving the mystery. However, the itching returned relentlessly, tiny pinpricks that compelled him to scratch until his skin was raw. The next day, Mike revisited to check the traps. He shook his head in disbelief. No catches at all. These traps are specifically designed to attract bedbugs. If they were here, we'd have at least one by now. Lucas stared at Mike, eyebrows raised in surprise. "Maybe you should consult a dermatologist." It could be a skin condition mimicking insect bites. Feeling deflated, Lucas realized the last thing he wanted was another dead end. Nevertheless, he scheduled an appointment with a dermatologist, Dr. Harper. She examined the bites, took a biopsy of an inflamed area, and promised to provide results soon. In the meantime, she prescribed a cream to alleviate the itching. For a moment, Lucas entertained the idea that it might all be psychological or that his skin was reacting spontaneously. But the distinct marks and the consistent nighttime pattern suggested otherwise. Returning home, he decided to use the cream and wait for the test results to see if the bites would continue.
They did.
When Dr. Harper contacted him, new bites had appeared on his wrist and under his arm. Dr. Harper's voice was measured over the phone. Your biopsy indicates an inflammatory reaction consistent with insect bites. There's no evidence of a dermatological condition causing this. Something is biting you, Lucas. A chill ran down his spine. Then why can't anyone find them? There was a brief pause. I'd like to refer you to an entomologist, an insect specialist. It might sound unusual, but we could be dealing with something more uncommon than bedbugs. I have a colleague who handles medical mystery cases like yours. If you're willing, I can arrange an appointment. Lucas agreed, though the notion that his issue was so rare and required a specialized expert made him uneasy. Within a week, he met with Dr. Ramirez, an entomologist renowned for consulting on rare cases. Dr. Ramirez greeted him with a calm and reassuring demeanor. I understand you've been through a lot, he said, reviewing the notes Dr. Harper had provided. Are you certain these bites only occur in your home at night? Lucas nodded. I don't get new bites when I stay at my parents' house or when I stay overnight with friends. It's exclusively happening in my bedroom. Dr. Ramirez tilted his head, intrigued. That indicates the source is localized. If it's not bed bugs, it might be something entirely different. Let's conduct a comprehensive examination of your sleeping area. He retrieved a small kit containing magnifying lenses, test tubes, and slides. Back at Lucas's apartment, Dr. Ramirez proceeded methodically, using a headlamp and magnifier to inspect the mattress, bedding, and frame. He collected tiny samples of dust and fibers from the mattress seams, sealing them carefully in vials. He even scraped a portion of the wooden bed frame into a sample bag. Throughout the inspection, he remained mostly silent, nodding occasionally. Lucas observed him closely, unaware when Dr. Ramirez's posture stiffened slightly and his breathing became more rapid. It occurred when the entomologist lifted the mattress corner to examine underneath. Dr. Ramirez held the magnifier close, frowning, before swiftly taking a sample. His expression remained neutral, but Lucas sensed that something significant had been discovered. Did you find something? Lucas asked, his voice tinged with urgency. Dr. Ramirez pursed his lips. I noticed something unusual, but I need to analyze the samples under a microscope. Let's hold off on conclusions for now. Lucas felt his heart sink. Another period of waiting and uncertainty awaited. However, he understood the necessity for thoroughness. Dr. Ramirez left with the samples, assuring him he would call with any updates. That night, Lucas avoided his bedroom, seeking refuge on the living room couch, layering himself with freshly laundered blankets in hopes that distancing himself from the bed would provide some relief. But upon waking, his heart sank as new bites appeared on his ankle. The angry red welts taunted him, and his stomach churned as he scratched the irritated skin. The realization struck him. Whatever was causing this had spread beyond his bed. It wasn't confined to one area. It felt unstoppable. How could something so persistent and invasive evade detection by the experts? As he pondered his next steps, his phone buzzed. It was Dr. Ramirez. His voice was sharp and urgent. Lucas, I need you to come to my lab immediately. The urgency in Dr. Ramirez's tone made Lucas's stomach twist in knots. Is it serious? He asked, his voice shaky. I'll explain everything when you arrive, Dr. Ramirez replied. Lucas's mind raced during the drive to the lab. His hands were clammy on the steering wheel, and his thoughts spiraled through the worst-case scenarios. Upon entering the small, sterile laboratory, his nerves were on edge. Dr. Ramirez greeted him with a brief nod, his expression unusually grave. He directed Lucas's attention to a table where a small petri dish sat beneath a high-powered microscope. The room smelled faintly of antiseptic, and the harsh fluorescent lighting cast stark shadows, heightening the tension. "These are the samples we collected from your mattress. Take a look at what we discovered," Dr. Ramirez stated. Lucas leaned in, peering through the eyepiece. At first, he saw what appeared to be dust mites and fabric fibers. But then he noticed tiny shapes, creatures smaller than a pinhead. They had elongated, slender bodies with multiple legs. Unlike the round, reddish bedbugs, these beings were almost worm-like, with minuscule appendages. "What are those?" Lucas demanded, recoiling in shock. Dr. Ramirez leaned closer to the sealed container, his brow furrowed in concentration. He adjusted his glasses and spoke in a measured, definitive tone. "We've identified the species. It's called Triatoma infestans." Lucas's heart plummeted. "What is that?" Dr. Ramirez explained. "It's a parasite typically found in South America. They're notorious for their aggressive feeding habits and their ability to adapt to human environments. They feed on bodily fluids, and their bites closely resemble those of bedbugs." Lucas felt his chest tighten with anxiety. "How dangerous are they?" Dr. Ramirez replied firmly, "Very dangerous. They can cause severe skin infections, allergic reactions, and even transmit secondary diseases through their saliva. They're not just biting you, they're nesting and breeding in the crevices of your bed frame, possibly within your walls. Each night, they emerge to feed. They're nearly invisible to the naked eye, and their bites mimic bedbug reactions, which is why everyone was misled." A wave of nausea washed over Lucas. He had unknowingly been hosting an invasive species right in his home. "But how did they get here?" he asked, striving to remain calm. Dr. Ramirez shook his head. "They could have arrived through imported furniture or packages from abroad. These organisms sometimes hitchhike in shipments. We need to act swiftly. I'll be calling in a specialized team later this evening." Lucas stood in the corner of his living room as a team of experts in protective gear entered his bedroom. Through the partially open door, he watched as Dr. Ramirez supervised from the hallway, indicating where he collected samples. Another specialist, Dr. Nguyen, approached the mattress with a flashlight and a specialized vacuum device. Suddenly, she halted and stepped back, her eyes wide with alarm. "What's wrong?" Lucas called out, anxiety gnawing at him. Dr. Nguyen's voice trembled. "They're moving a lot of them. Oh my God, they're everywhere." He heard a technician scream and rushed to the doorway, only to be restrained by Dr. Ramirez. Through the erratically moving flashlight beam, Lucas saw tiny shapes scurrying across the bed frame, some falling to the floor and vanishing into unseen cracks. He couldn't believe the level of panic. "What are we dealing with?" he asked, his voice hoarse with fear. Dr. Ramirez attempted to stay composed, but his face was pale. "They're more numerous than I anticipated. We need to seal off this room and possibly the entire apartment. This isn't a standard extermination. We require containment and immediate eradication procedures. I've never encountered something like this in a residential setting." Amid the chaos, Dr. Nguyen managed to capture a few specimens in a sealed container. She was breathing heavily through her mask, her hands shaking visibly. Lucas could see the tiny, pale creatures wriggling inside. Even viewing them caused his skin to itch. Within the hour, additional experts arrived, donning heavy protective suits and establishing a negative pressure environment to prevent any escape. The building's superintendent was summoned, followed by the local health department. Everyone who saw the creatures reacted with horror and disbelief. This was an unprecedented discovery that defied conventional pest control norms. Lucas was escorted out of his apartment and instructed to find temporary accommodation. The health department mandated treating not only his unit but also the surrounding areas to ensure the invasive creatures hadn't spread. It would require days, possibly weeks, of intensive measures to eradicate them completely. Lucas watched the turmoil from the hallway, experiencing a conflicting mix of terror and relief. At last, there was undeniable proof that something dangerous and real was inhabiting his home, and people were finally taking action. In the ensuing days, Lucas maintained constant communication with Dr. Ramirez, who kept him informed about the progress. The team succeeded in eliminating most of the colony using a combination of intense heat treatments and a specialized solution sourced from an advanced research laboratory. They had to remove the mattress, the bed frame, and even sections of the wall paneling to ensure no eggs or larvae remained hidden. It was a meticulous and unnerving process, but ultimately, they declared the infestation eradicated. When Lucas finally returned to his apartment, it felt transformed. The bed had been replaced, the walls repaired, and every surface sterilized. He hesitated before approaching the bedroom door, memories of the screams and panic flooding his mind. The silence inside was palpable, but Dr. Ramirez's reassuring words echoed in his thoughts. "It's safe now." A week later, Lucas met with Dr. Ramirez and Dr. Nguyen at the laboratory for a final debriefing. They explained that the creatures likely entered through a piece of imported furniture he had bought from a discount warehouse months earlier. The larvae had adapted to living in human environments, breeding rapidly and feeding on him nightly. This was a new variant of a known parasitic species, prompting specialists worldwide to be on alert. It might even lead to changes in how certain ports inspect shipments. Lucas was thankful to be free of the pests, but the psychological impact lingered. Every itch made him flinch, and every tiny speck of dust made his heart race. Dr. Nguyen offered a comforting smile. "You'll recover from this. It was unprecedented. You did the right thing by seeking help." He nodded, appreciative of their efforts. He couldn't fault the exterminator or the dermatologist for not identifying the issue earlier. None of them had ever encountered anything like it. Specialists had taken a closer look and were horrified by their findings. It stood as a powerful reminder of how bizarre and unexpected situations can arise. A few weeks after the ordeal, Lucas sat in his living room, flipping through television channels. He felt more at ease now, the trauma gradually fading with each passing day. He ran his fingers along his arm, no new bites, no unexplained marks. He could finally sleep peacefully again, and that was all that mattered. The story quietly circulated within certain professional circles, with entomologists sharing images and data to discuss preventing similar invasions. Health officials updated their inspection protocols. Lucas's life slowly returned to normal. He carefully replaced his furniture, opting for local vendors and meticulously inspecting every item. He became well-versed in pests and parasites, more than he ever wished to be, but it gave him a sense of control. In the end, the mystery that began with a simple assumption led to a horrifying revelation no one could have anticipated. It served as a stark reminder that the world still harbors strange and unsettling surprises in the most unexpected places. Lucas had survived the ordeal and hoped his experience would help others realize that not every itch or bite stems from something familiar. What would you do if something entirely unknown invaded your home and your life? How would you manage the uncertainty and fear? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more incredible stories.
Disclaimer: this channel does not support or tolerate any form of discrimination, racism, prejudice, or violation of human rights. The stories presented here are original and created by the author with the aim of promoting reflection, awareness, and dialogue. All content is developed with respect for diversity and the dignity of all people.